Kennard's going to be calling in after the presentation, so
Okay. Got my finger ready, Mr.
it'll
Chairman.
be a half hour or so. We'll call the Wednesday, December 19th, 2012 agenda session of the Missouri Public Service Commission to order. This is the first time that we've all been together since the tragedy in Newtown. I know all the commissioners are parents around here, and it affected us dearly. I think nobody could watch that without being absolutely deeply troubled and felt a great deal of sadness. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off with just a moment of silence, honoring the lives that were taken in Newtown. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the minutes from Wednesday, December 12th, 2012. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from Wednesday, December 12th, 2012, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. All right, I'd like to jump down. As many of you are aware, we had an outage, a water outage, on I think it was October 23rd. Is that correct? That was actually fairly significant to the Jefferson City area. So I wanted to give Missouri American an opportunity to come in here and just kind of give us a quick explanation of what happened. But more what I'm more interested in really is because outages happen, pipes, things happen. But more importantly, I want to talk about the procedures and policies that were implemented to let people know how that worked, the repairs, and just kind of an overview of what happened, and allow the commissioners to ask questions if they have any. So I'd like to turn it over right now, or to Jim. You want to come in and introduce the people that are here from Missouri American, or turn it over, introduce Frank, who's here, and he can turn it over, but I'll let you kind of just set this up.
Well, as the chairman pointed out, there was an outage at the treatment facility here in Jefferson City back in late October, and on behalf of the commission, they wanted to have the Missouri American come in here, explain what happened, and invited Frank Cartman, who is CEO, president of Missouri American. We have Greg Weeks, who is in charge of Missouri operations. Gil Cole is the head of Jefferson City operations.
That's correct.
Tom Simmons, who is
Water quality manager.
and Detmer here is their public relations.
Excellent. All right.
So I'll turn it over to Frank. And
Frank, you want to come up on and sit at the table, and you can bring anybody else up that you think you need to?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks, Chairman Gunn and commissioners, for the opportunity to discuss this with you today, and appreciate everybody from staff and Office of the Public Counsel who's here today, and others interested parties, because this is a very important topic to this community, to the water industry, all of us across this country, actually. So today I have with me the people that Jim mentioned, because they all played a significant role in the recovery from this event and the evaluation of just what happened and what measures we have in place or are putting in place to help prevent something like this from happening again in the future. Just at a high level, at about 8 o'clock in the morning on November 23rd, we had a failure of a pipe and fitting inside the pump room at the plant, the pump room that transfers treated water from the plant to the distribution system. And for about 5 hours, the system went without water, without pressure, and that was and Gilbert will get into exactly why that happened. But after that first 5 hours, the system was repressurized, and then it was about another 31 hours of time required to purge air from the system, flush the water that was in it from the system, and then take samples, water samples, and the analysis process for that within that 31 hours takes about 18 hours. And so altogether, it was another 31 hours after the first 5 before we were able to confirm that the water was safe for sanitary purposes. This does involve aging infrastructure. But there were a lot of other things at play as well, and we'll get into those as we go through the discussion. But as I said, Gilbert will go over the events and our responses in some greater amount of detail. We'll look at the things that went well, and we've looked at what could have gone better, and we'll discuss that in a little detail, and then also share with all of you what we have in the works to mitigate this possibility in the future, or possibilities like these. So Gilbert, do you want to come on up and describe, or take a seat, I suppose?
Is this the hot seat?
And we do have a couple of slides today. One is a map of the affected area and the interconnects with the Water District.
Water District 1 and Water District number 2. We have emergency interconnects, and it goes both ways. If they need water, we can supply them water and vice versa. So it's a really good agreement we got with them. It works really well. As in the past, we've all had problems and benefited from that interconnect.
I'm going to go ahead and
Okay, so
kind of walk through
basically,
the event.
yeah, basically what happened was the morning of October 23rd, 8:05, as Frank said, we had a tapping saddle, actually a strap broke on the tapping saddle, and that put pressure on the rest of the system. The whole system just collapsed. That is a pressure relief system going from just the pipe where it's put into the system, and then the pipe from the clear well where we suck it from the treated water from the clear well. So the system between the two to purge pressure when you put on a pump. So basically what happened was the strap, due to corrosion and metal fatigue, it just let go, and that whole system failed, putting water into the high service pump area where our 4 pumps are at. And that's high voltage in there, so we had no choice but to basically shut the power off to the whole plant, because you couldn't send people in there to work in that high voltage situation.
Well, isn't it true too that if water got into the electrical gear and the components, that we could have been looking at a longer outage?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, that was one concern, but the first concern was safety of the people.
Sure.
So that's the reason we decided, and within 10 minutes we had the power shut off. And we're in the process of assembling the necessary people to shut valves down, to isolate the system so we can make repairs. And that started about 8:30. The crews arrived on site. They started shutting valves down so that we could isolate the system. Of course, in the interim, we were letting our customers know what was going on. I had conversations with the city administration, and we called our big users, Unilever, the hospitals, all these people, the school systems, let them know that the outage was going to be. At that point, we really didn't know when we would have it back on, but we didn't know exactly what it was. And let them know what the situation was so they could deal with it. And we also the city administrator, he enacted the emergency action plan that the city and county has. And by doing that, they were already getting potable water to the hospitals and to the nursing homes, and so they could keep functioning, so they didn't have to evacuate the hospitals. So all that started from 8 to 8:30. So there was a lot of action going on then, and there was raining cats and dogs to boot to make the problem even worse. But anyway, they got the repairs made. We got the water down to a level where we could see what was necessary to make the repairs. And we got the repairs made within about almost 3 hours, less than 3 hours from when the break occurred. So we did that. We got it repaired. And then we checked the electrical system to make sure that when we fired things back up, we didn't have sparks flying everywhere in the motors. And all that happened within about 15 minutes. Then we got the water, the power on just a few minutes before 11. Then we started our first pump. And you do it easily. You don't just fire up all 4 pumps and overwhelm the system. If you did, we would have had about 15 main breaks and still been out of water. So you do this gradually. And part of that process is you've got to go out and let the air off the system, because once you have an outage like that where a lot of the system went to zero pressure. Now, let me say, the whole system did not go to zero, because at 9 o'clock we had the emergency interconnects turned on. and that helped the system not to go to zero in the lower areas. As a matter of fact, Unilever, which is our biggest user, was never out of water except for just a very few minutes. So they were able to continue to operate. And then, for what I understand from St. Mary's, the lowest they got was 35 psi. So the whole city did not go out, but most of the city there was zero pressure.
Just a quick question. Unilever wasn't using that for drinking water. They were using it for their
Process
processes. So it was okay for them to, as long as they had pressure, they could use it as no.
Well,
no
see,
problem.
they treat the water again too. They run it through RO units and this before they go into their process.
Reverse osmosis.
Right. So basically, that's what happened. And we, like I said, we started pumping the water back at 11 o'clock, or a couple minutes before 11 o'clock. We activated one of the pumps, and it was till I think 1:30 we finally got the system totally back to normal pressure, which was 87 psi. I know at 1 o'clock I had a meeting with the emergency planning folks, and at 1 o'clock the pressure was already at 72. So it took, well, from 11 o'clock to 1:30 basically to get it back to full pressure.
Gilbert, these meetings with the local emergency planning commission, what were the nature of those meetings? What was being discussed?
Well, basically, we just want to see how things were going, where we're going to be, when we're going to have water back, when we will have potable water back. You know we have water back for firefighting. Matter of fact, at 1 o'clock we had water available for firefighting. And then they just want to know how long it's going to be. And I basically told them as soon as we got through flushing, getting air off, we would sample the system. And that would take 18 hours from that point to decide if the system was such that we could go ahead and use it as potable water. And basically it was to go over that. Now, we also went over other things like the water to the hospitals. We have a vendor set up, Opie's, which is a truck transport company. They're under contract, and we call them. They actually had transports to the hospitals at 1 o'clock that same day. So the hospitals basically did not miss a beat. And
were they delivering water in a tanker truck? Or?
It was in a tanker truck. I think it was 5,000 gallons per tanker, and they had 4 tanker trucks available. What they would do, they would bring the tanker trucks in from Eldon, and that's where they're located. And we had agreements with Public Service District Number 2. They had a setup where they could keep refilling them and take them to the hospitals. So basically, that went really well. They were able to keep operating.
That's potable water.
Yes. Yeah, they have sterilized trucks that they can haul potable water with, and they had 4 of them available for our use that day. It would probably vary depending upon what they have when we call them. So anyway, that went really well, and the school system did shut down that day early, but the following day they did have school, and basically we supplied them with bottled water. Not only schools, but Lincoln University. We had some water available that we got from Walmart that was at the Cole County Emergency Center. And several of the schools, I think about all the schools came by and got some bottled water so they could keep operating. Lincoln University, they got some water as well. So the schools were able to operate even though they didn't have potable water. And they could use their toilet facilities and all that. And they had some other water they could use for the cafeteria. So, and then, let's see, the next day at 8:30, we took the samples out of the incubator. And we read them, and they were all...
This is 8:30 p.m.
8:30 p.m. the
on the
next
24th.
day. On the 24th. That was after the 18-hour period. It started at 2:30 that night. That's when we finished the flushing and the collection of the samples and put them in the incubator. So 18 hours later, which was 8:30, they took the samples out, and they were all negative for bacteria. So,
Which is a good thing.
which is a good thing.
Negative is good.
Negative in this case is real good. So then we lifted the boil advisory at 9 o'clock. We called the media, and they notified everybody. And basically, that was what happened. And if there's any details you'd like added, I'll try to add them.
If it's if you want at this time, I think it would be good for Ann to discuss some of the communications details and how we got in touch with customers and others.
That'd be great.
Basically, we use all.
And you can come up here, because we've got on the webcast, and you can stay there if you want. We've got an extra chair.
During this event, we used all the communication resources that we have at our disposal. We notified the media and were in pretty much constant contact with newspaper and television and radio during the course of the event, keeping people updated. We also have an auto dialer phone system that contacts our customers with a recorded message. We put that into play both when we applied the Boyle advisory and when we lifted it. We used our website, social media, Facebook, and maybe most importantly, we kept in real close contact with our customer service center. So when people called, they had the latest updates.
At what point did you know what the timing was going to be in terms of restoration? Was that immediately after the repair? Once the repairs were made, did you know then that 18 hours was the window in order to flush the system? So, or was it even earlier than that? As soon as you realized what the problem was, you were able to put a timetable on it.
Trying to recall that. Gilbert,
Well-
didn't we decide once the system was pressurized, we made an estimate of how long it would be before?
We knew it would be the next day, probably into the night of the next day. But until we got through with the flushing and the sample collecting, then you knew it was 18 hours from that point. You know, we guesstimated what it would take for us to flush the system, and we figured it'd be about 1:30 or 2 o'clock before we had it completely flushed. It was actually 1:30 when we completed flushing at
AM
a.m.
on the next day.
on the same day. Yeah, it would be the next day.
Are there concerns when you're flushing the system that you could create other breaks because of other air issues or water going through the pipes?
There, it was that possibility. That's why we wanted, first thing we did when we set up the pumps to pressurize the system, we went out and started opening air valves. Because that's the first thing you do, because air will compress and water will not, and that's what causes main breaks. So that was the first thing that we did, was started opening up air valves to make sure we could get some of the air off the system. And that worked really well. We were fortunate, and people did their job right, such that we didn't have any main breaks. So it worked really well.
Do you know how many calls you received from customers?
Yes, during the entire course of the event, we received about 1,300 calls.
Was the call center able to process that amount of calls? Did you,
Oh,
you
yes.
didn't have any problems with
No.
people getting a hold? Or
No.
and then how many calls did you make out on the auto dialer?
Well, the way the system works is we contact every customer. There's about 11,000
11,000.
customers here in Jefferson City. And the way the system works is that system dials every customer that we have a telephone number for. And it tries to reach them 3 separate times. And it will leave a message on an answering machine, or it will play a recording when someone picks up the phone. So that's, we made those calls as soon as we were aware. We got the process started as soon as we were aware that we were going to have to issue a Boyle advisory. And then we lifted it at 9 o'clock the next night. We didn't want to be calling. It takes about 3 hours for those calls to go out, because they're calling each customer potentially up to 3 different times. So when we lifted the advisory, we didn't want to have people getting calls at midnight. We notified the media at 9 p.m., and then we started the calls in the morning at about 6 o'clock a.m.
And then, so if you have a cell phone number for someone, and a voicemail comes on, and you leave the recorded message, is that considered a contact, and
Yes.
therefore, and so you don't need to recall them because their voicemail has picked up and you've left a recorded message?
That's correct. As long as the system reaches either a person or a voicemail, the contact has been made.
And then you don't do that. You don't try to reach them 2 other times. That they're
No.
off the list.
That's correct.
And when you call through the next, so the list theoretically gets smaller and smaller
Correct.
every time of people to call.
Yes.
Any
Oh.
other questions? All right.
Well, we wanted to, we thought we should address, what future plans we have, what we've done in the short term to not only address this type of failure, but, address other aging infrastructure issues that we have. So Greg, do you want to talk about that? Or actually, before we do that, Tom, do you want to explain this 18 hours and what are we doing that it takes 18 hours to determine whether the water is safe for sanitary purposes?
Well, first off,
You want to come up here? I'll relinquish my seat.
after I was aware of the situation that morning, I called the plant. Steve Ridenour is the operations supervisor here. Discussed it with him, and we knew it was going to be a boil advisory situation. Low pressure incidents. Normally, if it's below 20 or very low or zero pressure, you issue a boil advisory just in case there's potential for any contamination or anything like that. And in this case, as Gilbert had alluded to, there were a lot of residences and businesses here that still had water throughout this whole situation. Jefferson City is very challenging because of the elevation changes throughout the city. So anyone high probably was zero. Anyone low would still have pressure, no doubt. But so I talked to Steve Ridenour. We used 18-hour coal alert, which is a defined substrate testing method. It's used by over 90% of the water utilities in the United States. Normally they use 24-hour coal alert here, so I work out of the St. Louis office, so I brought the 18-hour coal alert up here. There's an additional testing, part of the testing process that involves heating the samples, so I brought the equipment to heat the samples up, the 18-hour coal alert. After they got the system repaired, or got the break repaired, we flushed all the air out, which is very important. And then the normal practice is to flush until you get what we would consider our normal chlorine residuals. Here in Jeff City, that's around 2.3, 2.4, 2.5.
Yeah, something in that range.
To make sure that you've purged all the air, anything out of there, get the chlorine residuals back to normal, then you get your bacteriological samples. We picked up 8 samples throughout the affected area, and then we took them back to the plant. The laboratory at the plant is state certified by the state of Missouri, Patrick Shannon and the State Health Lab. Set them up, and it's an 18-hour incubation period. It's a very simple test. It's really difficult to make a mistake with it. It's very cut and dried.
Yeah.
You pick the samples up in a pre-prepared bottle, you open them up, pour in the media, put them in the incubator, and you're done. And, they were all absent for coliform bacteria. I'm very comfortable with our testing process. I think had conversations with Steve Sturgis here in the past, and I think the state's comfortable with our approach.
Yeah, I don't know if you would like me to speak. I'm Steve Sturgis. I'm with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I'm the chief of the Public Drinking Water Branch.
Sure.
I was in my office in the Lewis and Clark State Office building when the water main break occurred. So like many here in the room, I learned about it pretty much instantaneously as well. I immediately was asked a lot of questions by my own management, as you can imagine. You don't ever want to have an event like this in the city where all the regulators live.
You're right.
I mean, I find it humorous myself because I know about all the line breaks that are occurring every day, and there's dozens that happen every day around the state. But this one, unfortunately, happened right here in the state capitol. So I was asked, what's going on? What's going to happen? And I said, well, we have procedures in place. Our regional office is already, they're already taking action. They had already been contacted by Missouri American. I believe I talked with Tom very shortly after this occurred. They were immediately implementing a boil water advisory, which is what we expected them to do. They were taking all the actions that they were appropriate. Frankly, I wish most of our other utilities in the state would respond as well as they do. They are probably one of the best, if not the best, utility we have in the state of Missouri. So we have no concerns with the way this was handled. It's unfortunate that it did happen. Unfortunately, there's a lot of aging infrastructure in the state of Missouri, and it's a chronic problem statewide and nationally, to be quite honest. Now, just so you understand what the concerns are during an event like this, the role of DNR is to make sure that the public has a safe and adequate water supply. In an event like this, when you have a loss of pressure, especially down to zero, we can have what's called backflow or back siphon, which literally the water flows out of residences, out of businesses, out of industrial operations. You have the possibility of contamination. So that's why it's very important that proper procedures are taken, that we have samples that are collected to ensure the safety of the water supply. All of that was done appropriately in this situation. So anyway, just wanted to say all that. I'm myself happy to answer any questions you all might have.
That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
Can we take just a few minutes to talk about response?
Absolutely.
Greg, do you want to talk about what we're doing in the short term and some of our longer term capital plans?
Yeah, we'll look at things in the wake of the event on things that went well, things that we could improve on, and certainly some short-term and long-term things we can do. A couple of things that worked really well. Missouri American really operates across a wide geography in Missouri, so we were able to pull in resources and equipment from outside of Jefferson City to assist. We had crews here from St. Louis pretty quickly to help with the flushing. So, like some of the other events that have happened, flooding in Platte County and Brunswick and the tornado we're all familiar with in Joplin, we were able to pull in resources from outside of that local district to assist, and that assist with getting everything done in a quicker manner. So, again, there was a big benefit of having those resources. Ann touched on the communication. I think one of the keys going forward is social media. It seems to be becoming a more and more important way of contacting people. So the use of that and the use of the auto dialer system, or the kind of reverse 911, is another thing that we've been using for several years that's been very effective. Gilbert talked about the other thing. Another real critical factor here was the effectiveness of the local emergency planning committee. They got together quickly. They were able to respond and assist. We work closely with those across the state in all our districts. Frankly, some are more active than others. The one here in Jefferson City is probably the most organized and active. I know we've done a number of drills.
Yeah, we've done quite a few drills with them, and actually, I personally went with them to the facility in Maryland where we did a 1-week training on emergency. This is one of the better systems that I've had to work with. I've been in quite a few other areas. I've not just been in Jeff City all my life. As a matter of fact, I started out in North Carolina, the city of Charlotte, so you can probably tell from the accent.
Yeah, hard to tell there's a bit of
So one of the things that you go through and all this stuff is the lesson learned, and I think more importantly, rather than the things that work exactly the way they were supposed to, are the things that didn't quite work as well as you had hoped. And you know, appreciate you coming in, because that's always the hardest part of this. But it's also probably the most critical thing in order to examine, in order to do better. It's not that things didn't work okay,
Right.
But
Yeah.
just
Some of the things we learned, we have emergency manuals with a lot of contact information for people. Those have become several years out of date as far as names, so we had proper contact phone numbers, but the contact people have changed. So one of the things we're doing is making sure we're updating those at least annually now, so we have the right names for contact. We did use a hydraulic model, and that was a thing, that assistant that I think we can use more in the future. When we're looking at flushing, and to speed that up, is use a model that basically simulates the system. I think we can use that more effectively going forward. It worked here, but it's something that we haven't done so much in the past that we're going to use.
It probably
more
saved
often.
us, probably several hours in our flushing program by doing this modeling, computer modeling, so you can directionally flush it and do more than just start at the plant and work your way out. It actually was a very good process, and it saved us quite a few hours. It may have been the following day that we could have lifted the boiler advisory if we would have would not had that available to us. So that was in St. Louis.
so it models the system, it figures out where the break is, and then tells you the most efficient way to
It looked at the usage at the time, and then the different inputs we had, which at this point were essentially nothing. And so when we turned the plant on, it could tell us as the water was going out, how it was going out, where to go open hydrants, where to flush.
And we also had to shut valves down such that we flushed it properly.
To move the water in the right
It was really
direction
a
to
tremendous system.
clear it up
It helped
faster,
a
so.
lot.
right.
In the past, we've had to step out, basically just kind of build a ring from the plant out and and go that way. So some of the things we learned about this particular instance, the saddle was on there, had some corrosion and some fatigue from use. We're going to do a better job of inspection of that. It does get visual inspections. We've since put it in, I guess very recently, into our maintenance management system, which is a computerized system which generates, regular go inspect this, go look at that. We're going to incorporate that in there to make sure that that's all happening on a regular basis and documenting it in the system. We're painting a lot of these facilities. This piping was in a concrete trough underneath some boards. It wasn't obvious, but it was in a humid environment, so we're going to look at painting some of that. We did an evaluation of all the piping. There was no structural damage. There's a lot of surface rust, but no real structural damage we saw. But nonetheless, I think we're going to do a better job of painting and keeping those facilities up and doing the inspection. And I guess some of the things other going forward, one thing that would have helped probably more than anything else, and I know the city's waiting anxious for this, is we're in the process of building an elevated tank on the west side of town. As part of the capital program here in Jeff City, the first thing we did, the Ellis tank, the ground tank, was built in 2006, 2-ish. That was actually the first storage away from the plant that the Jefferson City system had. We are building an elevated tank out pretty close to Unilever, which will start in late 2013, be online in 2014. We have already installed a 20-inch main from near the plant out to where the tank's going to be. That was done in 2012. Yeah, it was an industrial drive to help provide the feed out there. If we would have had that elevated tank in service at the level we were pumping water at the time of this break, we would have had about 6 hours we could have survived off that tank. So there would have been no boil advisory. We would have been able to float off the tank.
In addition to that, had Ellis ground storage tank out of service. We were painting it, so it was empty. So that made the problem even worse. If that had been online, we could have pumped out of it for at least 10 hours, which we normally do on a regular basis. We pump out of it during the day. So that side of town would not have been affected at all. That pressure zone that is fed by the Ellis tank, and like Greg said, if we'd had the elevated tank, we wouldn't have the boil order at all. So,
yeah, so
it's coming.
Moving forward with that is a big thing. And then there are other additional plant improvements planned for 13 and 14, the Clearwell and some others. And we are re-looking at that hole as part of that. The plan improvement is go back and look and see if there are other single points of failure or critical points that we may have missed in the wake of this, to say, let's see if we can find anything else and make sure we incorporate some mitigating efforts. So we're going to plan on doing some basin work as another phase of the plan improvements, and we will look at any places where we have failure points like that and make sure we can build some kind of redundancy in. Jefferson City operation is sort of unique pre this elevated tank, that we have a plant pumping into a system and no storage, until a few years ago offsite at all. So,
yeah, that's very unusual.
Moving forward as quickly as we can with the elevated tank is probably the biggest thing we can do. The other thing we did in 2011 or 10 was a generator at the plant.
That was 2010, and that was because of the outage that Ameren had for the whole city. We were basically had to shut down the plant then because there was no power. But since then, we've got emergency generators, and we can run as long as we can get fuel. And we do have contracts for fuel to keep that going. We could run our system even though Ameren shuts down. So we shouldn't have any problems. And it's got an automatic system where it just clicks over. And it works good. We test it every month.
Unfortunately, with having to shut the power off, for this particular failure, the generator didn't help. But
No.
typically, it is a backup to the plant. So,
Any questions for this group?
Sounds like your agreements with the public water supply districts here was a real help as well.
Absolutely.
Is that something you all do in all your districts, or is that unique to Jefferson City?
we do it in some locations where there's an availability. We do have sale for resale contracts with some. A lot of those, though, we are the sole supplier, so they can't give it back to us. But there are a few, and where there are, we St. Charles is one that comes to mind. Public Supply District 2 in St. Charles, we've used that interconnect before when we've needed to get water from them.
Okay. And it works both ways. You help them out as well.
We have interconnects with the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County that we utilized a couple times this summer. That we get water both ways. Two examples.
Thanks.
I don't have any questions. Your presentation was thorough, so thanks for coming.
Thank you. And when did you take over the Jefferson County system? How long has Missouri American?
Jefferson City.
I'm sorry, Jefferson City. Yes.
2000. Yeah, 2000.
Okay.
We acquired that.
Started in
For that, it was a municipal system.
No, it was owned by United
Oh, okay.
Waterworks Company before that General Waterworks Company. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've made a lot of necessary improvements to keep the citizens supplied and.
Well, in that period of time, a little less than that, we've invested $23 million.
Wow.
in this system. The system's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Well, and I know.
Like a lot.
Well, I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I
thank
know.
you.
I know during the last rate case, during the local public hearings, it seemed that there were very few complaints about service. There was a lot of compliments about Missouri Americans' commitment to service. So that's good.
Frank, you mentioned you had a couple slides. I don't know if you want to.
We probably covered them, but I don't know what your schedule's like, but
If you don't think if you could
was
send them
really
to us,
about
and
the
that's fine.
disconnect.
Really, I think from my perspective, outages or infrastructure failures or pipe main breaks are gonna occur. This was a bit more widespread, and one of the things we wanted to make sure was that at least there was not only a lesson learned from your perspective, that you at least went through the process, but that we as a commission know a little bit about that process and know what some of the outcomes are. So and I think to do it in public, it's good for the public to know what happened and how you help mitigate this, and that the fact that the water is all on doesn't mean that there aren't safety issues that take some time in order to go through this, but also things that to know that there at least was a review to see what didn't go so well and how improvements can be made, but not only for you but for other water systems and for other groups. I think there are things that you can learn, and then hopefully other water folks, but at least our water folks can understand learn from the experience that you guys went through to help us in dealing with some of these things, and can help encourage those water utilities that don't have the same types of systems in place to develop strategies and plans for this to happen. So I appreciate you very much coming in. Did you?
Yeah, I just want to say, if any of you want to tour the plant, just give me a call and we'll give you the grand tour.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. It's a lot easier to do now. So, I think we accomplished here exactly what I wanted to accomplish, was to give an opportunity to explain to us and to the public what happened and how you dealt with it. And it pulls the curtain back a little bit. Not everybody's thinking, well, once you get the pipe replaced, why can't you just start drinking water and putting it on? And you realize that the steps that are taken during a restoration are to make sure that the customers are safe. And to know that the hospitals, and there's a plan in place for hospitals, and there was a plan to help schools so they could operate, I think encourages both from an emergency management planning side as well as from the utility side to have these kind of contingency plans in place and being able to implement them as quickly as they were implemented. Having basically a half hour when the break happened to actually implement an emergency plan, I think is pretty good. Everybody can always do better, and that's one of the reasons why we bring folks in. But I think from a response time, I think a half hour from an incident to an emergency plan being implemented is pretty good. And so, if there nothing else further, I appreciate you guys coming in and giving us the opportunity to hear from you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Much appreciate it. All right. Let's start. We've got a bunch of orders today, so let's start pounding away at them. Tariff and new orders, GT 2013-0334. This is the Southern Union Company, the Rebuild Joplin program tariff that we've talked about. Judge Steerley circulated a memo and brought in some concerns from public counsel on the extension. This would be a 4-month extension of the program. And staff's recommendation and DNR's recommendation is to allow the tariffs to extend by a matter of law. It appears that I think that's where everybody is, but I just want to go around and see if there's any questions or comments for the judge.
No.
I don't have any questions, but I mean, I actually selected either option 1 or 4, and I'll just throw out there why and let you all respond to it. Option 4 lets it go into effect by operation of law, but it does specifically address OPC's allegations, and to my mind, there was at least some merit in specifically addressing the specific allegations. I don't know if y'all share that same thought. I mean, I'm actually fine with either 1 or 4 because the result is the same. But I thought the nature of the allegations may merit at least some acknowledgement and response. That was my.
I considered that option and don't have strong feelings about not doing it. I just preferred the option 1, but I'm willing to hear what you have to say, and if it's something we need to do.
Right, yeah. I think always doing less is better when you can.
I mean, there are
In
some
this case.
procedural reasons not to actually issue an order and just to kind of withdraw this and just let it go into effect as a matter of law. But
And Mr. Chairman, I did bring this formatted in this way with the multiple options, and no order is required to go out on this.
Which is option 1,
which is just
right.
option.
Well, I don't feel that strongly about it. It's just the nature of the allegations I thought was such that perhaps a response would be appropriate.
And I think that there are actually, I agree with you to a certain extent. I think there's some things that should be pointed out about the allegations. What I think we should do, and we don't have to do this in the order, is I think we should convene sometime in April or so, as this is about to expire again, another on the record in order, because we're going to have more. The whole purpose of extending this is to get a good sample size to actually determine cost effectiveness and to determine whether these things should go forward. And I think that so right around the time that this is set, we should probably, if there is either a new extension or whether we do it after it expires, is an open question. But I think one of the things that has been all of our concerns is that while we want to do our best to absolutely make sure that Joplin has the tools that they need to rebuild, we certainly don't want people taking advantage of that and having programs that don't make sense or that don't further that ultimate end of helping Joplin rebuild. And I think that it'd probably be smart for us to do it on the record. Judge, if you could, I'm probably in favor of option 1.
I'm fine with that
do
too.
it. So, but if you could just calendar at some point to bring back to agenda a time as we get through this process a little bit to have it on the record where can we bring the parties in and make sure the collaboratives are working the way they're supposed to, making sure that we continue to make determinations about cost effectiveness when they're appropriate and move on. But what I'll do is I'll mark this as discussed and withdrawn, and the order will take no further action and will allow the tariffs to go into effect as a matter of law.
And I'll calendar that and bring it back for case discussion later.
And the date for the operation law is what, December
December
31st?
31st for expiration of the current tariff, and then January 1st for
Gotcha.
extension.
Never mind. We'll just never mind. I'm good.
All right. Tariff and orders, 2012-0166. Union Electric Company, order approving amendment to stipulation agreement regarding Ameren Missouri's Keeping Current program. This appears to be an agreement by all parties. Are there any questions or comments on the order? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order approving an amendment to stipulation of agreement regarding Ameren Missouri's Keeping Current program and ER 2012-0166, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, EC 2012-0406, order adopting recommended report and order Sherry Leach versus the Empire District Electric Company. I don't see any questions. Are there any questions or comments on the order?
I just have a quick comment. I want to commend Judge Bushman on this. It's a complaint. I think he does a really good job of setting all this out for the complainant, who's a layperson, so that she can understand sort of the reasoning and the law behind this. So I thought he really did a good job of not, of explaining it to her so she can understand.
I agree with you. All right, all those in favor of the order adopting recommended report and order in EC 2012-0406, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, EO 2012-0142, Union Electric Company. Order approving amendment to stipulation and agreement. Again, this is basically a typographical amendment. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order approving amendment to stipulation and agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, EE 2013-0312, Ameren, Missouri, order granting variance. And this is a variance in the date in order to complete a study to give a little bit more time. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order granting variance in EE 2013-0312, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, IO 2013-0323, Southwestern Bell Telephone Company, order granting expedited treatment and overturning North American Numbering Plan Administrator's decision. This is just a block of telephone numbers.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on
Boy, where's Commissioner Clayton when you need him?
I know exactly.
He's always on. He was always right on top of
He'd
these
always
babies.
ask about where we are on exhaustion. Are we okay on exhaustion, Natal? All right, we're okay on
Great.
exhaustion. All right. All those in favor of the order granting expedited treatment and overturning North American Numbering Plan Administrator's decision in file number IO 2013-0323, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, EO 2012-0323, Kansas City Power and Light Company, order regarding 2012 Integrated Resource Plan. And again, this is appears to be an agreement which takes care of almost 50 concerns in the IRP with a procedure for addressing the other concerns in the order. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order regarding 2012 Integrated Resource Plan and file number 2012-0323, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Did you say aye?
Yeah, that's not very loudly.
That order is
I
approved.
think I did. Aye.
I just want to make sure.
Aye.
He is a little more exhausted.
I know. We're getting there. We're getting there. Tariff and new orders, EO 2012-0324, Kansas City Power and Light, Greater Missouri Operations Company, order regarding 2012 Integrated Resource Planning. It's essentially the same thing, but for GMO. Any questions or comments on the order? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order regarding 2012 Integrated Resource Plan and file number EO 2012-0324, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. Tariff and new orders, GT 2013-0108, Union Electric Company, order approving electric efficiency tariff. Are there any questions or comments on the order? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order approving energy efficiency tariff and GT 2013-0108, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's on the natural gas side, by the way. Just to clarify for folks that are listening, it's not on the electric side. That order is approved. And then we added one for good cause, which is tariff and new orders GF 2013-0261. This is Summit Natural Gas of Missouri. They would like to file an application to issue no more than $100 million of long-term debt. Are there any questions or comments on the order? Hearing none. All those in favor of the order authorizing issuance of debt in file number GF 2013-0261, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That order is approved. All right. Yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a 5-minute break? We'll come back and we'll do Syntex Wireless real quick, and then we'll get into Kansas City Power and Light. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Be back at 10:30.
Judge Downs was on here and I guess didn't.
He doesn't. He was
phone, so I just use it.
I have an unlimited plan on my personal.
All right,
Yeah.
we will reconvene. Syntax Wireless. Judge, why don't you tee this up?
This was the complaint that staff had brought against Syntax Wireless. Prior to this going to evidentiary hearing, staff and the company filed a unanimous stipulation agreement. The commission held an on the record on November 15th to address concerns to the parties. And following that, we ordered that they file a revised stipulation agreement, which they did, along with an explanations of the changes that were made to address the commission's concerns.
Does anybody want to bring them back in? We'll bring an order, but does anybody want to bring them back in based on the revised stipulation and agreement that they filed?
No.
So why don't you circulate an order, and we'll see where everybody is. I don't think there's any need for us to bring them back in. But we'll take a look at the revised report and order, and we'll just see where people are.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, Judge Bushman, why don't you? Any questions? We've got the local public hearings. Commissioner Stoll, as a Christmas gift
Merry
to
Christmas
all of
to all
us,
of you.
has agreed to. My initial thought was to have a agenda down in Joplin. The issue is that none of the local public hearing facilities have a really good webcasting, and since Kansas City Power and Light the Kansas City Power and Light order is going to be discussed, and that may be the last one we have before we vote it out. Or at least there may be some extensive discussion. I would rather have that discussion more transparent and webcast rather than do it down in Joplin where we'd have probably an extremely limited audience. So because of those technical limitations and because of I thought it'd actually probably be better not to. So it's at 12 and 6 and 12 on the 3rd and the 4th. Commissioner Stoll has agreed to cover them. We'll plan on having agenda on the 3rd. So, we may just have it just depend, and Commissioner Stoll will call in. But are there any questions for the judge? So it's about a 5% increase. That's requested?
That's correct.
Which is somewhere around $30 million.
I think it's 30.7.
$30.7 million. So in terms of magnitude, it's important to the people of Joplin, but it's on a much smaller scale than we've been dealing with in Ameren and Kansas City Power Line. Any questions for the judge? All right. Thanks very much. And again, a wonderful Christmas present from Commissioner Stoll.
Yes.
And we
Merry
appreciate
Christmas.
it. Obviously, everybody can feel free to go down. I may actually go down on the 4th to the noon one as well. But that's covered. All right. Why don't we go to the Order 1000 stuff before we hit Kansas City Power and Light? We will be having a closed session after this. So, Adam, who are you looking for?
Lyra.
Lyra. She was just here. Greg, could you go find Lyra?
She's here.
Sorry.
That's all right. Adam, why don't you come up? Can you start without Lyra?
Yes.
Or does Lyra, pull the string?
No, to tell us.
Fair enough.
She used to want to put the buzzer inside of me that if you hit the button, I would stop talking. So. Who said she? Oh, sorry. A little Christmas frivolity here.
Seriously, it's brutal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. We're here to talk today about the SPP for Order 1000 comment response. The response is due December the 27th, but this is the last agenda before our policy is generally to try to bring it to you 2 times if we can. So apologies for only bringing it once this time. One of the decision points we need to make is whether or not to file it as a comment or file it as protest. That's one of the decision points that will need to be made kind of globally about the filing. I know Lyra had the opportunity to talk to the DC Council, and they recommended to file it as a
Comment and protest.
Great compromise there.
All right.
Just do both.
Which is very typical for what we've always done if there's something we want them to change or do differently, and we're asking them to change some things in here.
It puts a little bit more emphasis on the fact that we're commenting, but we are serious about you wanting to change it.
Yes, what DC Council said was they must consider when you protest. Comments are kind of like, oh, by the way, but, and I think Adam has a section that might be considered comment,
probably several comment-oriented sections.
but we also are protesting their interpretation of the Mobile Sierra.
Had to catch yourself, didn't you?
I did.
You did a good job of explaining that, by the way.
Good, thank you.
Go ahead and talk about Mobile Sierra. I'd say.
I
It's the
am
first
very
major point.
happy with the document as we have worked through it. I think it explains our position clearly in terms of why we think that the agreement is not the type of contract that Mobile Sierra was adopted to address. It doesn't affect rates. It's not a bilateral contract and those sorts of things. And I think there's also an argument that even if the doctrine applied, the commission could find that there is a problem with the public interest, or that there is a detriment to the public interest because it reduces competition. And the whole idea of setting these up is to improve competition. So I
So you
think
could apply Mobile Sierra. You could say that it does apply, but but when you go through the doctrine, one of it is detrimental to public interest. You find that under that doctrine, it's not appropriate to.
And there's another point along those lines, and that is that the Federal Power Act charges the FERC with setting just and reasonable rates. And that really overcomes the Mobile Sierra doctrine in terms of that is their primary job. And I think through competition is one way that they can certainly look at that or assure that that is occurring. Now, there are some situations where we think that giving the incumbents the right of first refusal is a good idea. And that's where
That's
we
consistent with the arguments that we made in MISO.
That's correct.
For purposes of reliability, etc.
That's correct.
And with the RSC letter.
Yes, and we agree with the RSC letter. Adam prepared that section, and I think we have it in there that we agree that there are certain times when that is a good idea, but that expansion of Mobile Sierra beyond that is not really a good idea. This is not due till the 27th. I'm going to be traveling, but will be available by email. And so if you have any questions, we're certainly happy to answer them if there's anything you want to add.
So let's take the threshold issue. Any objection to filing it both as a protest and a comment?
No, I think it's good.
No objection.
All right, so we'll file it both. We will agree with DC Council. All right. Now we'll go through. Adam, is there anything else on the substance that you want to add?
I would just talk about the RSC letter. I'll just hit three bullets, and then I'll talk about the thing we didn't do, which sometimes is as important as what we do. RSC letter, we just endorse it. That's something the commission's already signed off on. It basically says there's 3 ROFR exceptions. A zone with the multiple transmission owners, costs that stay within inside that zone would keep the ROFR. It's very similar to what we've asked for in OMS. Also, we said anything for a byway project, that's something between 100 and 300 kV, even though there's 1/3 regional cost sharing, we're endorsing that, keeping the ROFR, and also endorsing keeping the ROFR for an emergency or short-term reliability project. Then we have 2 things that are very similar to what's in the OMS comments. A multiple TO zone clarification going forward. A zone right now with 1 TO, if another TO builds in there, would that keep the waiver that SPP is asking for, or would SPP need to act? Or it's just very similar to what's in the OMS comments. Asking that affiliates not be allowed to kind of bid against each other. Very similar to the OMS comments, the only exception being if you want to do one bid that's fixed cost, where you only recover the cost of the estimate, versus a kind of a non-fixed cost bid would be the one exception. It's just boilerplate right out of the OMS comments. Then the thing that we didn't talk about is the affiliate transfers, because we thought the first time through that that SPP said that they were going to prevent a project that had been competitively bid out from being transferred to an affiliate, but couldn't find the language in the tariff. Well, it turned out they had transposed 2 letters, so they told us that it was at IX and it was at XI. So at XI, it says that you can't transfer it, so that prohibition is in there.
Okay,
So
that exists.
Yes,
Perfect.
we had found that late, and I feel bad because some work was done to draft some comments on that, but
That's all right. We learn
but
something
so
every time we do that.
So an affiliate cannot transfer
a competitively bid
better.
or a project that has been won through a competitive bid.
Yeah.
Now now you can have affiliates both competitively bid, and that's not a problem,
That I'm sorry.
right? I mean, so theoretically, Ameren and ATX could both bid on a project.
We're asking for that to only be allowed in the case similar to the OMS comments, where if one of them makes a fixed cost bid and
Okay.
one of them makes a
Under
non-fixed
restriction,
cost
right.
bid.
And at that,
And whoever wins it can't transfer it.
Cannot transfer to the other.
That would be
Without opening up the bid process.
Right.
Yeah, we're basically saying that if you've won a competitive bid, that there's no guarantee that the second best option, if the affiliate, if you can't build it as your affiliate, that's just. And we made sure to limit those comments as we discussed with you earlier to the competitive bid situation, and not discuss other projects.
Commissioner Jarrett, any questions?
Nope, I'm good with the comments.
And I guess we have time, so if you have specific language additions or changes, you can do that by email. We can circulate them and do it. But
I do have one strike, but I can email it to you if you prefer.
Why
So
don't you just tell us what it is? Ron?
page 14 of the comments. At the first full paragraph, the first sentence, it says at this time, OPSE takes no position on the waiver request itself. That's not correct, because we do take a position that the multi-TO zone waiver should be allowed.
Okay.
So therefore, that comment, which was
Clarification.
kind of copy and pasted from the OMS comments where OMS was not taking a position, is no longer valid. So we're taking a different position, but there's a reason for it because we've signed on to the RSC letter. So that sentence, I was rereading through this morning and realized that it's not appropriate.
So we're just taking that sentence out.
That's my recommendation, yes.
Okay.
So,
And again, if there are more specific things that people want to change, we have a little bit of time in order to do that.
and there's still some cleanup to be done in this
Right.
document.
It's still a draft. Any questions?
No questions.
All right, I think that's good. This is what we're doing. Obviously, if people have changes or additions, we can circulate those on specific language, and we'll look for a final draft emailed around as soon as you get it. As soon as you get it done, which will be whenever.
And if we need to have DC Council file it, they've indicated their availability on the 27th. They can.
We file electronically though, right?
Sorry?
We file this electronically though, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll get it filed by the 27th. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. All right, Judge Jordan, why don't you come up? We have a lot of. This may not go. We may not. We actually, in the Ameren case, we actually knocked out a huge chunk of this on the first go round. We may not be able to do that on this round. We may be able to do it, but let's see where we are. I'll start to again give everybody a little bit of break. Might as well do it. So. The regulatory policy and economic considerations. I don't know that we need to talk a whole lot about that. I'm fine with making the findings of fact on PURPA in order to satisfy the PURPA requirements. I am essentially at the same place as I was on ROE, as I was in Ameren, although with a range of 9.5 to 9.8. Although because KCP&L does not have a fuel adjustment clause, I would tend towards the higher end of that range. So probably the 9.7, 9.8 area. Okay. Capital structure. I am right now I'm around where OPC and MECG are, about 50%. cost. I think the 53 is probably a little bit too high, and the 47 is probably a little bit too low. I honestly, I agree with. Well, I don't know yet. I'm leaning towards the company on the cost of debt, but I don't have a firm position on that yet. On number 6, which is whether there should be adjustments be made to a holding company debt issue subsequent to the acquisition of GMO. I'm probably with staff, but there are a lot of specifics in that adjustments that I'm not quite ready to sign off on. I agree with your point on 7, and I think that we can't do it. Even if we were to do advisory, it wouldn't mean anything because we can't bind future commissions. So we have to deal with the facts as they are. And this is regarding the tracking on the cost issue. I'm trying to, for the folks that are listening, I'm trying to go through and talk about what the issue is. So now we're talking about rate design and class cost of service. And again, I apologize for not having a more fully developed position, but I am probably right now with leaving the class, the rate design, the existing rate design as existing, that it exists, but I can be convinced otherwise. I will say my positions on all these things remain fairly flexible. So if folks can make good arguments, I'm happy to move off of these. All right, so we're talking about 8, whether current residential rates be adjusted to reflect a revenue neutral shift seasonally. I am right now with the Office of Public Counsels on the issue, which is a non-revenue neutral shifts, which is large power services increase, small general services decrease, and medium general services decrease. 9, how should any residential rate increase be assigned to rate elements? I am with OPC with not raising the customer charge. On 10 and 11, I think I'm with the company. I don't think the residential space heating services should be eliminated. That's the only one. Southern Union is the only one appears to be advocating that. All the other parties in agreement. So I'm not only with the company, but staff and OPC and AARP and everybody else is for keeping that, and I am as well. I actually, this is whether or not the commission should adopt the staff's proposal to increase by 5% the first block of the residential space heating rates. I'm probably with staff and OPC on this one. I would say yes. But I could also, I'm also sympathetic to the EUA Kansas City that it should maintain the same relationship among classes. But initially, I'm with staff and OPC on that. On the 14, I think OPC and MECG make a very good point about taking a look at these as they're moving along and taking a look at these costs and having them do it. Although I will tell you that I think all the risk here is on the company. Because if we don't do that and the company makes a decision, we ultimately have the decision in order to determine whether it was prudent or not. So while I think that it probably makes sense that we at least monitor what's happening with these, and we may do some enhanced monitoring than just the IRP. I think the risk is on. I think the risk is on the company. I think that that either a separate docket or some sort of monitoring within this makes sense just from everybody's standpoint, because I think it allows the companies more information and staff and OPC and other people about how we're leaning or what we're acting or how we view some of these things. So I would be in favor of enhanced monitoring. But again, I think that the risk is on the company. And what form that takes, I'm open to. All right, Crossroads. Crossroads is really a huge issue, and I think that in some cases it's this white elephant that was picked up by Kansas City Power and Light, or when GMO, when they took Aquila in, and really, and it probably never should have been done in the first place, but. Do we want to be punitive against the company for basically rescuing a lot of Aquila? And however people view that, the fact is it exists. I think right now I'm leaning towards the ag processing. Our decision's on appeal. We haven't had it overturned. So if we get forced to do something different, we can be forced to do something different, but I think right now we can do the same. My tendency is to do the same thing that we did in the last case. The value, I think I'm initially with staff's position of the value of it. I think the base depreciation expense with staff again. Base depreciation expense on valuation. I have to, on 18, I have to take a look at the law, which is what transmission costs for energy from Crossroads should be included in the revenue requirement. This is similar to the issue that we had in the last case. But there's a twist because of you're getting it from Crossroads, which is one of these distant power sources, and so I have to look at 18 closer. I'm not entirely sure where I am. 19, I'm probably okay with using projected numbers again. There's risk there for them to use projected numbers, but on the fuel adjustment clause, whether, and this is just for GMO, I don't know that it should be modified outside of the 95.5. So I'm comfortable with keeping the 95.5. It's consistent with the fuel adjustment clause in Ameren, and I think that the arguments for keep it that way are fine. On whether both revenues and costs associated with REC should flow through the FAC, right now staff. Although I can be convinced that if the revenues do offset the costs, they can be included. But right now I'm in staff's position. I think the answer to 22, which is should GMO's FAC tariff be clarified to specify that only transmission costs included in it are those that GMO incurs for purchase power and off-system sales, excluding the transmission costs related to the Crossroads Energy cases. I think that the answer is yes. It should be. But I'm also, I think staff makes a compelling argument that to receive purchase power serving native load, yes. To make off-system sales, yes. But as to Crossroads, maybe not. Probably not being that much help on a lot of this, but I think the answer to 23, which is should they be ordered to provide or make available the additional information dockets requested by staff, I think the answer is yes. And I'm fine with updating terminology, which I think everybody should do. All right. Again, probably not as much help as I was previously, but at least that throws this out for discussion. So, Mr. Jerry?
Me go first? Okay. Or second, I should say, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, issue number one, the regulatory policy, I think we just kind of addressed that in the various issues. It doesn't need its own special section. Up front, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my thoughts about the company. I'm very impressed, number one, that they have taken great participation in the green zone in downtown Kansas City. I think that's a great thing for them to do in the smart grid piece that they have down there. I know they've been a leader in energy efficiency programs even before MEA. The big one I attend to, probably the last coal plant that'll be built in the United States. We got that built, and I think that kind of serves as a model that coal is still a big piece of the energy puzzle as we try to figure out where to go from here. And that plant will be around for hopefully a long time, providing base load power. So just up front, I think the company is doing a good job in a lot of areas. The purpose stuff, I'm fine with wording that to comply with PURPA. I don't think that's a big issue. ROE. I don't know whose brief it was pointed out in or was testimony, but they talked about the last time, and I don't think it was by design, but certainly the effect of it was we the number settled at the midpoint range of Hathaway and Gorman. Again, by effect, not by design. I think that's just the way the calculations came down, and we found that both of them were credible. In this case, there were three witnesses that I really consider: Hathaway and Gorman, of course, and then Cahall from the federal agencies. I know that Hathaway recommended a 10.3, but his range really was 9.8 to 10.3. Gorman's range was 9.1 to 9.5, and he recommended 9.3. And then Cahall recommended a 9.5, but his range really was 8.8 to 9.8. So 2 out of those 3 witnesses, in their range was 9.8. And if you consider Gorman's recommendation of 9.3 and Hathaway's recommendation of 10.3, you get to 9.8. 9.8 just seems to keep coming up. And so I would say 9.8. On the capital structure, I would use Great Plains Consolidated Capital Structure. I understand and appreciate OPC's argument at 50%. Obviously, credit is cheap right now, but taking a longer-term view, having a company with that much debt, especially if things, and a lot of that's going to be long-term debt, possibly. I'm not so sure that that's a good thing to do, to have on the books that much debt. So I would just use Great Plains Consolidated Capital Structure. Number 5, I'm at the company's position, agree with the chairman. And again, I should have said, I'm like the chairman. A lot of these are sort of my initial impressions. I'm not real strong necessarily on any of these. It's just these are sort of my initial impressions. Obviously willing to take another look at some of this as we move forward. Item 6 on this, I was leaning toward the company's position on this, but again, willing to consider. Number 7 is the transmission tracker mechanism. I know in the Ameren case, that was one of the options. If we didn't flow it through the FAC, obviously GMO has an FAC, but KCP&L does not. I would tend toward considering a tracker or considering it moot, possibly, as the judge sets out. Let's see, then the next issue is the where are we? Rate design, class cost of service. I'm with the company on that one. Existing rate design be maintained. Number 8. I think on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, I am leaning actually towards staff. I think they have come up with sort of a gradual way to address the inequities, to try to bring them closer to the true cost of service. But again, I'm leaning that way. That takes us, what, through 13? Then 14. Yeah, my thoughts on this was that these are things that the IRP process could do. I know the Sierra Club claims it's inadequate. I would like to see it be done in that. I mean, we passed this big new rule. It's very robust. Parties can come in and identify, these contemporary issues to add to the IRP. This seems like a perfect one, possibly, since we're looking at future environmental costs. I just think the IRP process can incorporate this. But again, if everybody else wants something else, I'm willing to look at that. Crossroads. I agree with the chairman. At some point, Aquila has to be put in its grave. It just keeps coming up like a bad penny. I think the bad pennies in Aquila are gone now, and we need to figure out some way to move forward. On 15, I thought staff's position, again, it's sort of a middle ground. It doesn't give the company everything they want, but it does recognize that this plant is giving benefit to the ratepayers. 16, then I would be with staff on that, because if I would value Crossroads at staff's number. 17, I'm with staff on the depreciation expense. 18, this is another one that I'm thinking about as well. I need to go back and look and see what the record says about the transmission costs, and compare that again back to the power costs. I want to make sure that the ratepayers are not paying more for that than they should. 19, I don't think there's any action necessary. I think I'll just leave it at that. The adjustment clause, I would leave it as it is in 95.5. So that's 19 and 20. 21, I would take, I think both revenues and costs should flow through, the good and the bad. So the company's position there. On 22, again, this relates to whether we exclude the transmission costs from Crossroads or not. So I'd either be for staff or GMO depending on how I decide the earlier issue. So I'm still up in the air on 22. 23. I mean, they're asking for information. GMO says they're providing it. I don't know if we specifically need to address that in the order. If staff doesn't think they're getting the information, they have avenues to pursue that. So I wouldn't address it in the order. And then, of course, 24, I agree with the chairman. The new tariff terminology, I think, is good. That's where I'm at.
All right. Excellent.
As of today, the second.
Right. It's a snapshot.
Yeah, I'll make that same point. Nothing I say here should be held against me in the future. These are my initial impressions.
Positions are fungible.
This is fluid. But I will say, okay, so jumping right into the third, I'm not going to go over on the two. Cost of capital issue. I think all the ROE witnesses were credible and were expert. And I will draw some distinctions here between this case and the Ameren case, just for I'll say it out loud for my own purposes too. But Hadaway was very compelling, and I was impressed by the fact that he's testified for a broad range of parties, not just one set of parties. So I find him as credible as Gorman. Having said that, I thought Hadaway's GDP growth rate was far too high, and I think Gorman's arguably was a bit low. Gorman's range was 9.1 to 9, and I'm talking about for their DCF analyses. And Gorman's range was 9.1 to 9.5. Hadaway's was 9.8 to 10.3. So I would probably find myself somewhere between 9.5 and 9.8. I'd be willing to elevate Gorman's high and decrease Hadaway's low to arrive at some middle point between 9.5 and 9.8, which I think would take into account what I think are growth rate numbers that are too high in one case and too low in another. So that doesn't give you a hard number, but it's somewhere between 9.5 and 9.8.
It's closer than we were last time. So
Yes. Capital structure. My initial inclination would be to use the parent's actual capital structure, but I don't remember who made the argument. Somebody made the argument that the 53% equity that is reflected in Great Plains' actual capital structure doesn't actually account for short-term debt that Great Plains took on to refinance long-term debt on an interim basis that will be replaced again after this rate case is over with long-term debt. So I think the actual cost of capital, or the actual capital structure isn't really an actual capital structure. It's an interim capital structure until this short-term debt is replaced again with long-term debt. And so if that's in fact the case, I would be inclined to use a hypothetical capital structure of 50-50. And I think that's the position advocated by our staff and OP. No, staff's at 47%. So, well, it's the OPC position, so I'm inclined with the hypothetical capital structure of 50-50. Cost of debt. Yeah, I would use Great Plains' consolidated cost of debt. That's number 5. Then the question is on number 6 whether there should be any adjustments made to that. And I don't have the answer yet. I need to still look at that one. Number 7. And I read number 7 and number 23 in concert. The request is that we institute a tracker for transmission costs. And, you know, I think there's an argument to be made that, and I don't know, I mean, they're going to get these costs either way, I think. And the question is how to do it in the most appropriate legal manner. Is it 23?
23.
No, 20. No, 22. I'm sorry. I meant to say 22. I'm kind of confused. I know wasn't staff's position in the Ameren case that transmission costs should not flow through the FAC at all? Anybody remember?
Yeah, I think that was their position, but then their fallback position was yes with a tracker, but with conditions. I think.
But their initial position was that no transmission costs should flow through the FAC, and so I'm just perplexed why the difference in position in this case. I mean, it
For consistency.
yeah, but you know, in some respects, I mean, this, you know, I don't know. I need to look at this issue further because I don't know that whether they should be flowing through the FAC, and if it is just to receive the power and to make off-system sales, then it's an argument to be made that those transmission costs are incidental to the energy, and so that may be appropriate in that situation. One of my concerns was to the extent that you end up running through the FAC costs associated with building, like in SPP, they're not multi-value projects, but balanced portfolio projects. Do we run into an issue where we violate the prohibition on QUIP? So I need to look at that issue a bit more. You're looking at me funny. You all right?
It's the only look I have, sir.
All right. Well, I said something strange.
Well, those aren't mutually exclusive.
On rate design, I would stay where we are. On residential rates being adjusted to reflect a revenue neutral shift seasonally, I'm at OPC's position on that one, and the same with number 9. 10 and 11. No, I do not think the residential space heat rate should be eliminated. And 11. Same, no. I agree with the company's position on that as well. And staff and nobody's. 12 and 13. I don't know yet. I think 12 and 13 are arguably related about increasing the rates to get closer to actual by 5%. I mean, I think it's a gradual solution. I just am not sure how I feel about the nature of the problem that it's trying to solve. So I'm not sure yet. 14. So I want to be clear that it didn't occur to me, or I didn't read what the Sierra Club was recommending as some type of pre-approval or prudence review in advance of the project being done. I saw it as a kind of an elegant way to avoid some of the issues we have at ITAN 2, and make sure that costs are being monitored periodically in some form or fashion. I do agree that a rate case is not the appropriate form for this, but I don't think anybody's saying do it in the context of a rate case. And I think the IRP process is a process that's appropriate for resource planning, obviously, on a grander scale when you're looking at a total package and at a total portfolio. But here we're just talking about specific plants and environmental and specific projects at specific plants. So I would be inclined to make some statement that in this case, and then after this case is concluded, to open a docket that would be designed to accommodate some sort of reporting process that works collaboratively with our staff, OPC, Sierra Club, to ensure that, not that we're making any prudence determinations, but that information's being gathered and shared appropriately throughout the entire process. And I think Sierra Club also makes an argument that there should have, part of that could, or a prerequisite to that could be an explanation of why retrofitting this plant is more cost effective than simply retiring it. I think that's an analysis that would be appropriate for us to see. All right, 15, Crossroads. I would be with staff on the value of it, which is $61.6 million less depreciation. So for 16 and 17, the same staff's position. All right, this 18 is a discussion of the file rate doctrine, what transmission costs should be included. I think the filed rate doctrine would prevent us from changing the rate, but it doesn't prevent us from necessarily making the threshold analysis or the threshold determination about whether the costs in the first place are prudent or not. So I think legally that analysis is correct. The file rate doctrine and the supremacy clause would prevent us from changing the rates that FERC has determined, but it doesn't speak to whether we can, in the threshold, make a prudence determination about whether the costs are prudent in the first place. But I want to take a look at that further though, before I make a determination. $19's not asking us to do anything, right? Am I reading that correctly? I would leave, so 20 then, I would leave the sharing percentage of where it is. I think that's consistent with what we've done in other cases, and there's just no reason to change it. Revenues and costs associated with RECs, I'm leaning towards staff's position. '22, that's related to number 7, and I need to consider that more. 23. As I understand this issue, they're just asking to continue sharing information, right?
I think they want something that says GMO shall provide information as requested by staff. It gives them another arrow in the quiver, I guess, if they feel the GMO is not.
I don't have any objection to inserting language to that effect in the order. Anything that's going to prohibit or minimize and mitigate against future disputes, I think, is a helpful thing. And then number 24, improve the terminology and make it more modern. That's good too. How about we order that? All right. Thanks.
Yes, we will. We shall.
Okay. Go right to, let's see, I will go right to number 3 on the cost of capital. I also had, using some of the same reasoning, you can take that for whichever reasoning you want, but the 9.5 to 9.8 range, and I also think that the 9.8 for KCP&L would be appropriate. On number 4, on the capital structure, I agree with the 50-50 structure is, I think, most appropriate. It does sound like they're going to get there by getting rid of that short-term debt, and so that would be, I'd go with the 50-50 on that. On the cost of debt, if I'm understanding this, it's should Great Plains Energy's consolidated cost of debt be assigned to KCP&L and GMO, or should the cost of debt be subsidiary specific? I think it should be assigned to both of them jointly. And is that something that, is that something that's actually in the rate case, how they do that? I guess it is, or it wouldn't be here.
I didn't agree.
The thing about how the debt is assigned, the cost of debt. So I think
that goes to the overall weighted average cost of capital. I think that's what you're
yeah.
understand your
Right.
Okay. So 5, yeah, spread that. Number 6, I'm not so sure about number 6 yet.
It's complex. So
It is complex.
understandable.
So let me think about that some more. On number 7, the transmission tracker, I tend to say no. I would say no, that can be handled through the accounting order and some of the other arguments that the judge made. Let's see. Then on rate design, I think the existing design would be appropriate. On number 8, should current residential rates be adjusted to reflect? I had circled with OPC's position on that. No for KCP&L, make non-revenue neutral shifts as follows. But that's also something I'd like to look at. It's kind of complex. It is complex. How should any residential rate increases be assigned to rate elements? I also circled OPC on that. Anybody has other input, be willing to listen to that, but I think that seems like it's where we're going. Residential space heater, should that be eliminated? No, leave it alone. On number 12, I also had, I am really leaning to, should the commission adopt staff's proposed increase by 5%, the first block? No, and then, no on 12 and 13. I think that, I guess I'd say that any increase should be spread among all rate classes. I'm willing to listen on that too. 14, one of the, maybe more than one, OPC and MECG both talked about creating an investigative case, create a record before the expenses are incurred. That's the same as opening a docket. That's, it seems like that's a good idea in this situation. Again, that way some decisions can be made prior to putting that money into it, to the project. On the Crossroads, I'm with staff with a 61.6 million less depreciation, and also with staff on the accumulated deferred taxes associated with that. Now, is that where we also, let's see. I would say too, I think, is this the one, I would say exclude the transmission costs from that. I was kind of persuaded by the argument that the ratepayers in KCP&L territory should not, in GMO territory should not have to absorb those costs. Should depreciation expense be based on authorized gross plant value of Crossroads? I guess that would be with one of my previous decisions. Is that decision made for me then? I wasn't certain on that. I may have been conflicted because I had circled GMOs, yes, consistently with deferred taxes. I want to make sure that makes sense. Think about that. On 18, what transmission costs for energy from Crossroads? I was with those interveners who said 0. On 19, off-system sales margins. Let's see.
You don't really have.
Yeah, that's
There's no real
no
decision.
action.
There's no.
Yeah,
real
no
decision.
action on that. Okay, yeah, that's what I. And on 20, keep with 95.5 mechanism. On 21, I'm with staff. On the cost and revenues up to compliance with REC. 22. I think I had that the purchased power cost were okay, but not the transmission, and the plant, put the plant in the base rate. And 23, keep that line of communication going. And 24, tariff terminology and FAC, that's okay.
That should actually give you some pretty good direction. If you could, because the only thing for agenda next week is going to be the compliance tariffs in Ameren. So if you could, when you get a chance, provide an updated memo. But that should, I think, give you actually more than I thought we might get done today on starting to actually craft an order. So I hope it was helpful.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. All right, let's go to scheduling real quick, and then we're going to close we've got 3 litigation items and a personnel matter, but let's do scheduling first. So again, the 27th, I'm looking at keeping the call at 9:30, but if folks have schedule adjustments that they want to make, let me know. We can move it up or back.
I'll be playing with my Christmas presents.
So we might need some more time.
Will we be calling?
Well,
How will we do
if
that?
people want to come here, that's perfectly fine. I will be calling you. The only thing that's going to be on agenda is the compliance tariffs, unless there's some other emergency that we have to deal with. But I wanted to be very sure. The intent was to cancel it over Christmas, but this allows us to at least get those compliance tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, I can come in and just sit at the table, look like
Fly the flag.
some
for us.
sort of, normal business procedures are occurring.
Some semblance of
Merry Christmas again, huh?
I may be wearing my Santa suit.
There you go.
That would actually be good. And then we'll move, because we come back right on the 2nd on Wednesday. I'd like to move agenda to Thursday, the 3rd. We've got the Joplin stuff covered, but I'd like to keep that at 9:30 unless someone needs to change. But we don't have a whole lot of flexibility because of the local public hearing. So if we change it, we still have to have it in time before noon. And again, that's probably going to have some further developed discussion about Kansas City Power Line. So I would recommend that we plan for a little bit longer period of time.
I think I'll go down to Joplin the night before and then call in for the meeting on Thursday and then go to the hearing at noon.
Perfect. Then we've got agenda on the 9th at the same time. The inauguration is the 14th. So we will have agenda on the 16th. And that's the 16th is really, I think that's the date we have to vote out Kansas State Power and Light, right, Judge?
I have that right here. And I have, that would be the latest. The hope was to do it on the 15th, but.
On that Tuesday? Because of the 10 days, right? That's why I wanted to do it. Well, if depending on where we go on the 3rd, we might be able to do it on the 9th because we made some progress today, depending on how we can do it. So we might be able to actually do it on the 9th, but so the 15th. The reason why we're talking about the 15th is because of the operational law date. That gives us the time that we need in order for everything to be filed. So we may move that the 16th to the 15th, but I will keep everybody informed, and we'll know much more on the 3rd about after the 3rd agenda about where we're going to be. All right.
We also need my confirmation hearing.
Yeah, we need to get that in there early in
certainly
here.
would love to have that as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
The 3rd?
The 9th.
The 9th?
9th.
Yeah.
So
I'd have until February 9th.
and hopefully we will have the name of a colleague that might be able to
we
join
will.
as well.
I don't know, but I think.
All right. As always,
Just give me 2 thoughts.
as always, if something changed, let me know. We didn't even think about that.
Again, half the time I vote against myself. I
You
vote.
cancel each other out, so it'll be fine.
Things
All
are
right.
working out just fine anyway.
I will entertain a motion to close under subsection 610.02 or section 610.021 subsections 1, 3, and or 13.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. 2 seconds, and we'll let people clear out. Advisors can stay in for the first 3, and then we'll need folks to leave for the person.